All right, good morning. This is Michael Youngs. I'm the president of Control Consultants. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Today, we have one of our very special partners here again with us, ACI, to talk about the power meters from ACI. Obviously, as we all know, this is a big sector in our business today. And all of our customers are looking at controlling and understanding their power usage within their building. So Mike Bowen today will give us an overview of the ACI power meters and the features in the KW350, KW320, and the KW1850. So if you would, Mike, you want to give yourself a little background, and then we can jump right in.
Sounds good. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, Mike Boland here with ACI, National Sales Engineer. I also have Kurt Spackman, who's actually going to be giving a presentation today. He's our in-house power meter expert. And I personally have been with ACI for over 20 years. Kurt's been with us, I think, now for 5, 6. Is that right, Kurt? Something like that?
Yeah.
Yep. And so to further ado, Kurt, why don't we just get right into the power meter presentation? You guys can ask questions as we go along or save them to the end. We'll leave that up to you. And we can go forward. Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Mike. I work here, again, Kurt Spackman. I work within the tech team here at ACI, along with another handful of great guys that can help support and answer any questions regarding the power meter offering, along with everything else ACI manufactures. So I am the point person here within the tech team that can help you with any application related questions. If you just need to run a project past me and discuss what would be the best product for the scenario, and then any sort of troubleshooting, tech support, meter configuration, things like that. I'm kind of the point person again here at ACI with the power meter side of things. So this presentation I put together it's basically an overview of the meters, model number selection, some high level features. I kind of go into kind of how we can support you and your team, and what we do here at ACI. And then I briefly kind of touch on some application things and go over, I don't really get into like installation, meter configuration, things like that. So if anybody does have any questions regarding those types of things, please just interrupt me and, ask me to expand on any of that. So this first slide here is essentially when we put the line together and went to market with it, we tried to make model number selection as easy as possible compared to a lot of the competition out there in the marketplace right now. So what we did is pack in as many features as we could within just a few SKUs. So compared to some of the other competitors out there where you have to know your voltage reference, what your communication protocol is, what style of CTs, things like that, we tried to, again, really pack in, eliminate a lot of those different variations of model numbers and just try and make them easy to select within a few SKUs. So this first slide here is essentially the 3 different series that were kind of brought up at the beginning of this presentation. We have the KW350 meter, KW320 meter, and the KW1850 multi-circuit meter. I'm going to expand on all those in some future slides here, but I just wanted to show the simplicity of the 3 different series within the offering. Just to briefly go over the service level we offer here at ACI, and kind of go over a few things that make us better, or I don't want to say better, but different than our competitors. So here at ACI, we are a supplier of single circuit and multi-circuit meters for, just basic kWh calculation and demand, kW demand. But we also have some options now for high accuracy, power quality monitoring, and energy data management. And I'll go over a few of those things in some future slides. One thing that we've been very fortunate here at ACI the last couple of years is we've had very short lead times on meters and CTs. In fact, we've been awarded quite a few projects simply because we've been able to get product out quickly. One thing, and I hope you've all been privy to this, is part of our culture here at ACI is we are quick to respond to whatever your inquiry is, whether that you have somebody in the field, technician that needs some sort of technical support with the product, or if it's, I need a quick price quote, things like that. We're really quick to get back to you, because we realize the old adage, time is money. Manufactured in North America, every product, CTs and meters, are all covered by a 5-year warranty. As I start to dive into the different meters here, one thing you will recognize, it is a very flexible product based on whatever the application is. So we're not just limited to BACnet and Modbus communication protocols. We do have some different Wi-Fi enabled protocols and things like that available in some of the series of CTs. We do have some retrofit solutions with our panel upgrade options on pretty much all of our meters. I'll tell you all about our panel upgrade options. We have some data logging capability with some of our meters. Again, true power quality meters. And then another thing we don't offer, but we do work with a third party, is some of our meters are able to connect directly to a cloud-based energy management software and billing software. So if you run into an application that is a standalone system and they need some sort of whether you have a landlord or just a building owner that would like some sort of like cloud-based analytics and reporting, we do have options for that. I don't dive too much into that. I basically just want you to let you know it is available. And if you run across a project that requires it, let us know, and then we can start to dive into that a bit further. And then kind of to expand on our service level, we're just not, a buy resell. We're here to help you from the start of your project to the end of your project, to your bid to commissioning. So we'll assist in meter selection, CT selection, configuring the meter, programming, any sort of technical and installation support that you may need. Okay, so I start with CTs. This is kind of pretty generic information, but I wanted to let you know what we offer here. And then the reason I start with this too is because one of our meters, the KW350 series, we do need to know what style of CT you're going to use to select the proper model number. The rest of them aren't like that, and I'll talk about that in some future slides here. But essentially, the two different series of CTs we offer are 333 millivolt split core style, and we do have a solid core style as well. And then we have the rope style ROGOWSKI coils, also a millivolt output, but they have a different span to output with the millivolt signal on the ROGOWSKI coils. So we do not offer like 1 amp or 5 amp CTs or voltage CTs. Specifically with the 5 amp, the millivolt CTs are just safer to handle, don't require shorting blocks. You can expand the leads in the field, things like that make these just a better product. And in fact, the industry is mostly headed that way to the millivolt style CTs. Just a few questions we might ask you, and I do want to get into revenue grade as well, but kind of a few things to ask your customers, or just yourself when you're selecting the proper CTs for the project. For the first one is obvious, split core ROGOWSKI coils. One thing that I always ask customers is what's your amperage range. Kind of common practice in especially our industry, is customers typically use the rope style ROGOWSKI coils. Simply because they do have like a wide operating span as far as the amperage range. But this may not be the best solution for the application. Typically at lower and higher amperage ranges, these aren't as accurate. And then the other thing I tell customers too is ROGOWSKI coils are typically at a higher price point versus some of the 333 millivolt CTs. So what I tell customers, if you've got something that's around 300 amp and below, you may want to take a look at the split core style CTs, especially if it's a price competitive scenario. Another question we may ask you is, exactly what's the conductor diameter, bus bar dimensions, or the window size required for the projects, because each one of these CTs have different aperture sizes. And then another thing, this is kind of a gray area, and I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but All of our meters and all of our CTs from an accuracy standpoint meet revenue grade requirements. And typically that is enough for most projects. And but I have, and it really depends on and region, type of project, things like that, if revenue grade certification is required. So we do have a specific series of CT, and I'll show you the model number in a future slide here, that is tested individually and provided with an individual test certificate that sometimes required for revenue grade applications. So, you know, applications where they're using the data of the meters to generate revenue. So tenant billing, things like that. But again, I've ran into projects that, you know, if it just meets the accuracy requirements, it's fine. What I will tell you is if you come across one of those projects and you're not sure, I would bid the project with the revenue grade certified CT. And then, you know, if the project moves forward, that's when you can start digging into whether it's a requirement or not. Just to briefly go over some of the SKUs of the CTs, we have our smaller hinged split core CTs. How you know they're the hinged split core, they have an H in the middle of the model number. These are typically for your lower amperage and monitor multiple circuits within a panel. So they're 20 amp up to 200 amp, 0.4 inch aperture, 1 inch aperture, and we're stocking these in both 8 and 32 foot lead lengths. Again, one thing that's nice about millivolt output CTs is you can extend the leads in the field if required. So you would just get a butt splice kit and 18 to 22 gauge shielded conductor to run the rest of the length. But if you too come across a project that you say, hey, Kurt, we've got multiple meters, then we need all 20-foot lead lengths. You know, we can get them made at those lead lengths, but this is what we have readily available and able to ship right away. And then we also have the split core standard accuracy CTs. These are typically for monitoring pieces of equipment, sub panels, mains coming into a building, 50 amp up to 1000 amp, 0.75 inch, 1.25 inch, 2 inch windows, and most of these are in 8 foot lead lengths. And then we have the split core revenue grade certified CTs that I mentioned. The reason how you can tell those apart from the others is they do have an R right in the middle of the nomenclature to indicate revenue grade certified. Again, shipped with a test certificate that only applies to that CT. 50 amp all the way up to 4000 amp, all the different window sizes. And then we have and I haven't come across too many projects that require this, mostly in Canada is where I've seen these, but these solid core CTs, where I typically see these is, again, projects in Canada that they're using for revenue grade requirements. One of their criteria to be considered revenue grade is it also needs to be tamper proof, or, you know, burden proof. So that hence the solid core. So, you know, some tenant couldn't go in and just, you know, separate the CTs. So but like I said, that's mostly in Canada where I've seen this requirement. But if you come across a project that has them, we got them. And then we have the rope style ROGOWSKI COIL CTs. The beginning of the nomenclature here they all start with RCT. The next set of numbers is the length of the actual rope. So this is a 16-inch rope, which would be a 4-inch window. 24-inch rope would be a 7-inch window, and so on. And then the next set of numbers is the rated amperage of the CTs. All these were stocking 6.5 foot lead lengths. With these ROGOWSKI coils, again, you can extend the leads in the field if required. That's it for CTs. I know that's kind of generic information, but I just wanted to get that information out there. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, this is where I'm going to get into model number selection of the different meters. And again, I'm going to discuss some high level features of each one of these series of meters. So we have our KW350 single circuit meter, the KW350-PC. This is the polycarbonate panel upgrade of this meter. I'll tell you all about that in a couple of the future slides. We have the KW320 and the KW320Q high performance single circuit meter, the KW320 PC, which is the panel upgrade version of this meter, the KW320B. This meter is our newest meter. It looks very close to the KW320 series, but from a performance standpoint, it is very different. I will tell you all about that in a future slide here, but I intentionally separated it from the 320 because I did not want to get confused on the performance of this meter. It's very different. And again, I'll tell you about that. And then we have our KW1850 multi-circuit meter. All right, getting into model number selection. So the KW350 series, there's 4 different model numbers within the ordering grid. So I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, there's one series of meter, which is this one, that we need to know what style of CT you're going to use to select the proper model number. The -RC indicates ROGOWSKI coil. So if you're using the ROGOWSKI coil CTs, you need to make sure you order that -RC version of the meter. And the -SC stands for split core 333 millivolt CTs. So again, if you're using that style of CT, you got to have the unit with the SC. And then the -PC version of each one of those, which is the polycarbonate panel upgrade. This meter is definitely one of our fastest moving meters, most popular. So if you're running across like the Veris E50, some of the EMON class 1000s, things like that are pretty popular in the marketplace, this is a nice substitute for those meters. This meter includes both Modbus and BACnet MSTP, so just RS-485 connection only, digital communication. But it does have both communication protocols within all these meters here. Modbus is the default. So a couple of nice things about this meter is you can set up almost everything through the user display if you require. Essentially, you just access the user settings through the set button here, and then you can get into the settings and do the meter configuration through there. Essentially, all the meter configuration you need to do is set up all your communication protocol, baud rate and MAC address, things like that. And then your CT ratio. So if you're using 200 amp CTs, you got to program that. And then you would need to also put in the wiring configuration. So if it's a 3-phase, if it's a single phase, with neutral, or whatever the case may be, that's where you configure the meter. And that's essentially all you have to do. But a couple of other nice things this one can do is this meter also has a programmable pulse output. So if you come across one of those scenarios where they're using a pulse counter to calculate kWh, this does have a programmable pulse output. It also has an external alarm relay. That one you do have to set up through the software of the meter, because you can set up so many different alarms to one relay. It could be an over voltage, under amperage, phase loss, things like that. So that one you do have to set up through the software. How you set that meter up through the software is it will require an RS-485 to USB adapter. We offer them as an accessory, but you can use any USB to RS-485 converter. And then the software is a free download. So you can also configure the meter through the software as well. And then the software will also display the real-time values that the meter is monitoring as well. Sometimes we use that for troubleshooting purposes. One other accessory that we offer for this meter is the KW350-ENC enclosure, short for enclosure. That is shown here. It does not have the meter. We just wanted to show you what it looked like with the meter installed. Essentially, it's a NEMA 4X enclosure with a lockable latch and a nice clear cover. The panel upgrade is very different. I'm going to talk about the panel upgrade in about 3 slides here. But if you just need a NEMA 4X enclosure where you're mounting it outside the panel, this is a nice accessory for that. I kind of addressed most of these in the first slide, but just kind of to recap. Regarding the accuracy, yes, 0.5, 0.5S, again, considered revenue grade accurate, revenue grade accuracy. I talked about the communication protocols and the pulse and relay output. Depending on what model you select, it can accept both style of CTs. So as far as data points. This will calculate your kWh as, you know, a running total. It'll also calculate your kW average demand. The default is 15-minute window. You can adjust that up to 30 minutes if you'd like. This does work in bidirectional applications. So renewable applications, for example, where both there's import and export energy. And then it's BTL listed, CE, row house. All the agency approvals are on the data sheet. I forgot to mention out of the box, the unit is meant to be mounted on 35 mm DIN rail. And then we have the panel upgrade or the NEMA 4X enclosure. Again, very popular meter. If you need me to expand on anything on this meter, please let me know. One thing I forgot to mention also is all of our meters can be used in up to 690 volt line to line services. So, you know, it'll easily work in a 480 service, you know, 240 volt, whatever. So most of the services that we're running into in the States, this meter will work in. Any questions on the KW350? Okay. So now I'm going to dive into just a couple more meters here. So I'll go ahead and mention this now. All of the meters now moving forward are not dependent on what style of CT you use. You can use ROGOWSKI and 333 millivolt CTs. Eventually the 350 is going to go that way as well. It's a hardware change, but we've worked that hardware change through all the other series of meters now. So again, eventually that 350, you can use both and it'd be a setting change within the meter. But as of right now, you know, like I said, you have to select a specific model number. Again, moving forward, all these other meters, you do not have to, you can use either or. So there's 4 SKUs within the KW320 meter. This is our high performance single circuit meter. So the KW320-XX is the base meter shown here. This meter is meant to be mounted in a 4-inch hole or a DIN square form. Typically, we see these mounted on the front of a panel door. So you get this nice big visual indication on what's going on inside the panel. And then we have the -PC version, which is the polycarbonate panel upgrade shown here. And then we have the KW320Q meter, both as meter only and the polycarbonate panel upgrade. The KW320Q has a feature that's very different versus, excuse me, versus the KW320 meter. It's called the waveform capture feature. So all these meters are true power quality meters. So it's monitoring, you know, like the harmonics of the service going into the facility or, you know, piece of equipment. But the waveform capture, so the KW320Q meter, so if you run across a scenario where you've got a building owner that's concerned with the quality of power coming into a facility, and they, you know, whether it's a data center or hospital or just somebody, you know, with very expensive pieces of equipment, and they're concerned with dirty power, what this meter will do is essentially you can set a number of alarms to that power waveform coming in to the facility. And if it exceeds any of those alarms, and it can be under alarm, you know, over alarm, you know, phase misalignment, like, you know, just a number of different things. Like I said, harmonics, it'll actually take an image of that power waveform and it'll log it and timestamp it. So then they've got that extra layer of reporting that they can relay to the utility company and say, hey, at this day, at this time, we had an over voltage on phase A, or, you know, whatever the scenario is. And, you know, hopefully get that resolved because they've got that extra bit of analytics that they're able to share. And then we have a couple of accessories for this meter. One of them is an AXM-DIN DIN rail adapter. Essentially, if you need to mount this base meter via DIN rail, there's an adapter that snaps on the back of it and screws to the base. And then we have that same USB-RS-45 converter. To be quite honest with you, you will not need this converter for this meter. This is a prime example of packing in a ton of different features and connections within one meter. So this meter does have RS-485 connections. So it has both BACnet and Modbus RTU. It also has dual Ethernet ports. So you can daisy chain this meter within a COM trunk if you're doing, backnet over IP, for example. You can also just use one of those as just a COM port, and the other one can be for local access too, with the dual ports. And then the other thing is this meter is also Wi-Fi enabled. So essentially you can configure the meter through the software, connecting to one of the Ethernet ports. You can configure the meter through the Wi-Fi connection, so you can, access it wirelessly, log into the web interface and do all your meter configuration that way. And then a lot of the configuration you can do through the user interface as well. So again, multiple ways to interface with the device. I'll go to the next slide. So this, as far as accuracy, this is, one of the higher accuracy meters that'll compete against, Schneider Electric and some of the other power quality meters in the marketplace. 0.1, 0.1 S revenue grade accuracy. I talked about, there's multiple communication protocols with this meter. It also does have, if you require this, 8 gigabytes of onboard data logging capability, which is years of data logging. The default is this is disabled. All you have to do is get into the user settings and enable it, and then you will have local logging on the meter itself. And then I talked about the Wi-Fi connection. The Wi-Fi connection, you can use it to, again, access the web interface, but you can also use that Wi-Fi for remote access as well. So if you want to put the meter in a station mode and have, be able to access all the data that way, trend logs, things like that, you can do it through the Wi-Fi connection. It'll accept both 333 millivolt ROGOWSKI coil CTs. I talked about mounting. I just wanted to show you that image of the DIN rail adapter. Again, it just fastens onto the base of the meter, so you can snap it on a DIN rail. Power quality, event logging, and the waveform capture I talked about with the KW320Q. And again, this is a true power quality meter, so there's over 400 measurement parameters within the same meter. If you're looking for a fits-all meter, this is a fits-all meter, essentially. Any questions on the KW320 or the 320Q meter? Okay. Now I want to talk about the panel upgrades really just briefly. I'm not going to read each line of this. Essentially, what we started the panel upgrade with just the KW320 and 320Q meter. It is now expanded to pretty much every meter within our offering because customers, they love it. Essentially, it was designed to save time. It's designed to save time on installation. It's designed to save time on procuring parts, design, things like that. And what we tried to do is eliminate as many of the installation errors as possible. The most common installation issues I see with these meters are CT installation. So the polarity's wrong, or they've got the CT face the wrong direction away from the load. And then the other thing that I see is phase misalignment as well, where they'll have the wrong CT on the wrong phase, and then meter configuration issues. Those are typically the most common tech support questions I get. So what we tried to do here is alleviate at least the CT wiring issues. So all of our voltage references, L1, L2, L3, are all pre-wired to the meter, and these are fused terminal blocks here with replaceable fuses. And then the CT inputs on each meter are all pre-labeled as well. So you got CT1 plus minus, CT2 plus minus, CT3 plus minus, also all pre-wired back to the meter. So again, we tried to simplify installation as much as we could, and then we package everything within a NEMA 4X enclosure with lockable latches. So if you run across a scenario where you just want to make sure you cut installation time, or somebody that's really not comfortable installing meters, this is a good solution for them. And again, that's the -PC version of the meters. Excuse me. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the KW320B. This meter was brought in to fit a very specific niche. And like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I talk about it separately and treat it very separately, even though it does look very close to the KW320 meter. The silk screen does have KW320B on it. So this meter was, and actually this, I need to change this. There's only one model number now because this meter will accept both 333 millivolt and ROGOWSKI coil CTs. So essentially the -SC and the -RC is not at the end of this anymore. I need to update this. I forgot to do that before this presentation. This is just a BACnet IP meter. It has one Ethernet port. It does not have any other additional communication protocols. It does not have power quality monitoring. It just is, for your kWh and kW demand calculation. We do not have this available in a panel upgrade version. Essentially, what was happening is we had a number of customers saying, "Hey, I need BACnet, but I need an Ethernet port. The KW350 would be great, but I need an Ethernet port." Well, that's where this comes in. It's a BACnet IP only meter. So if you're running into that scenario, again, this is meant to fit a very specific price point and kind of fill the gap in between the 320 and the 350. That's what this meter is. We do offer the DIN rail adapter for that if you do need to mount it via DIN rail. You can configure the meter, most of it through the user interface. It also does have a web interface. Essentially, you just connect the Ethernet port to USB, and then you can access the web interface and configure it that way as well. I won't go over all this because I've already talked about all of it. But yeah, it's like I said, it's very similar to the 320. It also does not do data logging as well. That's another big one, and it does not have Wi-Fi. It's, again, just a BACnet IP single Ethernet port meter. Okay, the multi-circuit meter. The KW1850- series meter, this is capable of monitoring up to 6 3-phase circuits. We recently added the panel upgrade version for this meter as well. So we have the KW1850-S and the KW1850-W. Basically, to not, go over all this again, essentially the difference is the difference between the KW350 and the 320 meter. Essentially, this is only serial connection only has BACnet MSTP Modbus RTU. But then if you jump to the -W, it has all the additional communication protocols, has the dual Ethernet ports, has Wi-Fi, has 8 gigabytes of data logging capability. So that's the difference between the -S and the -W unit. And then we also offer the polycarbonate panel upgrade in the same series. If you all have a minute, I highly recommend going to ACI's YouTube channel. We do have a promotional video that we put together that goes over some of the features of this meter. We also have one that goes over the panel upgrade series of all of our meters as well. So yeah, check those out. They're like 2-minute videos. If you do need just an enclosure for the KW1850, we do offer a -ENC, which is just a basic NEMA 4X enclosure. So if you have just the meter only and you're mounting it outside of a panel, again, we have an enclosure. I would highly recommend just jumping up to the attached PC version, because you do get that nice feature of having your voltage reference pre-wired to the meter with your fused terminal blocks. Another accessory for this meter is the SO-SP1. So one thing that's really cool about this multi-circuit meter is its small footprint. I mean, literally, it's a very small multi-circuit meter compared to some of the other competitors out there. And one way that we were able to do that is the CT inputs are right on top of each other. And so they have a special connector that's just a thumb connection port that you push in, you get a short lead length, and then you get a quick connect here. And so all your CT wiring mess is outside of the meter here. The meter will come with these connectors, with 20 of the connectors in the box, but if you run into a scenario where they get lost or you want some extra, we offer them as an accessory. And then we have that same USB-RS-485 converter that we have with all of our meters. The only meter you would need this with is the -S version. I would highly recommend configuring this meter through the software, because you do have to, you have multiple CT inputs now. And so you have to, map them all out, and you have to say, okay, circuit 1 is these inputs, and here's the amperage range on each one of those. And, it's just much more intuitive to do it through the software versus doing it through the keypad. If you do need to change something quick on site, you can do it through the keypad, but I would definitely do all the meter setup through the software. So as far as accuracy, 0.5, 0.5S. Again, we have BACnet, MSTP, and Modbus RTU on the -S. The -W has everything else. One note I want to do with this meter is, so this meter can accept both 333 millivolt or ROGOWSKI coils. You cannot mix them. Excuse me, I'm battling a little bit of a cold here. So if you go with Rogowski coil, you have to stick with Rogowski coil and vice versa. So yeah, this will do your kWh calculation, demand, all those parameters. Again, the -W unit has 8 gigabytes of data logging capability. One other really nice feature on this meter, it has 18 digital inputs, and it also has digital outputs as well and relay outputs. So one really cool application that I've ran into a few times is if you come across, and I mostly have just seen this in universities, where they're retrofitting metering into facilities, and they're coming in with, BTU meters, water meters, of course, power meters. And then what they'll do is those other meters will have a pulse output. Well, you can input them into this meter, and this will act as your pulse counter. So you eliminate a piece of hardware because you've got a pulse counter with the meter. So keep that in mind. And then we've got a DIN rail, or out of the box, the meter is able to be mounted DIN rail, but we do have that NEMA 4X and the panel upgrade option as far as mounting as well. Really cool meter. We are going to have larger multi-circuit meters. I can't give you an exact timeline here, but essentially it's going to be the same base meter, and then they're going to be able to offer expansion modules to go on top of this. That's a little ways out yet, but just keep that in mind on future projects. So I won't go over all these line items, but essentially, I talked a lot about the meters here. We do have both power meter selection guides and CT selection guides in the product catalog. So what we tried to do here is, go over some high level features, accessories that correspond with the meters, and some basic applications that are associated with each one of these meters to hopefully help with model number selection. So if you just, you've got a few criteria where I need BACnet MSTP, I needed 0.1 accuracy, that guides you to the right meter. And then we have the same selection guide in our for the CTs in the catalog as well. Those are both located on our website. I just want to let you know we have them. But again, I'm here to help. If you come across a project, say, hey, Kurt, I've got this job, I've got this many panels, I've got, I'll help you with all of that. I'm not going to go too much into this. I just wanted to put together some high level applications. You could do a whole presentation on the different applications meters can be used in. Essentially what it comes down to, if you're trying to manage your electrical usage, you need to measure the data. So any sort of project that has that theme in mind, we've got sub-metering for tenant billing, net zero LEED green buildings, data centers. Data centers are really good for power quality meters, telecoms, mass transits, OEMs, ESCOs. If you can partner with an ESCO, they already know how to sell metering, so that's a really good one. Shopping centers, solar and renewables, of course. EV charging stations that's another one. University campuses are really good. They run the gamut of types of meters and data they're looking for and things like that. Refrigeration. I put this one in here, gas, energy, and water metering for that scenario I was talking about with the multi-circuit meter with the digital pulse counter input. So with the power meter selection, the whole point of this slide here is that knowing more about the project helps me, guide towards the right meter for the application. I run into it all the time where, customers will say, hey, Kurt, I've got this, X manufacturer meter. What's your best solution or best cross? I'll give you, the best cross. I've done it. I do it all the time. In fact, I've got a lot of comparison sheets that I've put together of, our meter versus this meter. And I can offer that. There are some differences, but knowing more about the project will get us to the right meter, not what they're speccing, so that's the whole point of this. So if you send me over, hey, Kurt, this is the meter they're speccing for this project, I'll give you my best solution. But sometimes maybe they don't need the 320 meter, or the 320Q, maybe they're okay getting away with the 350 and, things like that. This one right here, and so this presentation we're going to share with you, so you have access to it. I put this together for customers to help you. You know, this is, I'm not going to go over each line item with this, but this is information that will help you select the right meters and number of meters for the project. So one thing that's always helpful for me, and I always ask customers, is do you have a panel schedule? If you can give me a panel schedule and what panels are being monitored, that's going to narrow us down to, how many meters. Okay, does it make more sense to go with a multi-circuit meter because these panels are in the same room and but if you don't have that information, here's all the other questions that you might want to ask to, does multi-circuit make more sense, or does, are we monitoring just, the loads of each panel or individual pieces of equipment, so on and so forth. All right, this questionnaire I put together does it make more sense to go with the 350, the 320, or the 320B? Essentially, these top 4 questions, if you can get these answered, that's going to narrow us down to which one makes more sense. Communication protocol and connection. If it's serial, 350 or the 320, IP, these. Do you require local data logging? If no, this. If yes, this. What data points are important? Are you just interested in kWh or demand, or do you need power quality information, the breakdown, and then accuracy? Essentially, if you can get those, narrowed down, that's going to guide us to the right meter. With the panel mount or DIN mount, essentially I put this in here to just show that we created the flexibility of mounting for, one versus the other with, we have enclosures, we have DIN rail adapters, things like that. CT preference, and then I put this in here, price lowest, these are the 2. If you need serial, 350, 320B for the Ethernet. So just to kind of recap, again, we do have, power meters and CTs to create, most applications that you're going to run into. Just to reiterate that we do keep a large inventory here at ACI with short lead times. Again, very fortunate to have very few supply chain issues. Again, we're here to help. We're a partner with you in this. We'll look over plans, panel schedules, things like that, and make a solution for the right product for the application. And again, ACI sales team and tech support team, we pride ourselves on our quick response to whatever your inquiry is. So if you need help with anything, please let us know. That's the end of the presentation. If anybody has any questions, please, don't hesitate to ask.